Imagine being rejected in high school, laughed at, dismissed as nothing more than a dreamer, only to return years later as the owner of the very company where the person who rejected you now works. This is not just a story of revenge. It is a story of transformation, ambition, and the unpredictable twists of fate that life throws at us. It begins in the crowded hallways of a suburban high school where a boy named Daniel walked with his books pressed tightly against his chest, his eyes always lowered, his voice barely heard. He wasn't the popular one. He wasn't the athlete. He wasn't the one girls whispered about. He was the quiet kid, the one who sat in the back of the class, sketching ideas in his notebook, dreaming of a future no one else could see. Daniel had one weakness, though. Her name was Claire. Claire was radiant, the kind of girl who seemed to glow even in the dull fluorescent lights of the school corridors. She was confident, charming, and always surrounded by friends. To Daniel, she was untouchable. But still, he couldn't help but hope. He admired her from afar, rehearsed conversations in his head, and finally, one day, he gathered the courage to approach her. It was after class, the sun spilling through the windows, and his heart pounding so loudly he thought everyone could hear it. He asked her out, just a simple request, a movie, a chance to talk, a chance to be seen. Claire looked at him, her friends standing nearby, and she laughed. Not a cruel laugh, but dismissive, the kind of laugh that said, "You're not in my league." She told him no in front of everyone. She said she wasn't interested, that he should focus on his books. The rejection burned. It wasn't just the words. It was the way she turned back to her friends, the way they giggled, the way Daniel felt invisible again. That moment carved itself into his memory, a scar that would never fade. But Daniel didn't let it destroy him. He went home that night, sat at his desk, and wrote down a promise to himself. He would succeed. He would build something so great that one day the world would have no choice but to notice him. He didn't know how, but he knew he had to. That rejection became fuel, a fire that burned inside him for years. High school ended. Claire went off to college, chasing her own dreams. Daniel, too, pursued his path, but his was different. While others partied and lived carefree, Daniel worked. He studied business, technology, and innovation. He took odd jobs, saved every penny, and invested in ideas that others thought were foolish. He failed many times, but each failure taught him something new. He was relentless. He was patient. He was building himself piece by piece. Years passed, and Daniel's vision began to take shape. He founded a small startup, working out of a cramped apartment with nothing but determination and a laptop. The company grew slowly at first, but Daniel's ideas were sharp, his instincts precise. He saw opportunities where others saw obstacles. He built software that revolutionized how businesses communicated, and soon investors began to notice. What started as a dream in a notebook became a thriving enterprise. Daniel became the CEO, the face of innovation, the man who had once been invisible now standing in the spotlight. Meanwhile, Claire's life took a different turn. She graduated, found work, but the jobs were never quite what she imagined. She bounced from one company to another, always searching for stability, always chasing the next opportunity. She was good at what she did, but the world was competitive, and the glamour of her high school popularity had long faded. She was just another professional trying to make her way. And then, fate intervened. Claire applied for a position at a company that had been making waves in the industry. It was sleek, modern, and growing fast. She was thrilled when she got the job. She didn't know much about the CEO, only that he was young, brilliant, and respected. On her first day, she walked into the towering glass building, her heels clicking against the polished floor, her heart filled with excitement. She was ready to prove herself, but when she entered the conference room for orientation, her eyes fell on him, Daniel. Older now, sharper, dressed in a tailored suit, his presence commanding. He was no longer the quiet boy with lowered eyes. He was the man everyone listened to, the CEO, the owner, the one in charge. Claire froze. Memories of that high school hallway flooded back. The rejection, the laughter, the dismissal. And now here he was, the man she worked for. Daniel recognized her instantly. He didn't flinch. He didn't smirk. He simply greeted her with the same professionalism he gave everyone else. But inside, he remembered. He remembered every word, every laugh, every scar. Yet he wasn't there to humiliate her. He wasn't there to seek revenge. He was there to lead, to build, to continue the journey he had started years ago. Still, the irony was undeniable. The girl who once rejected him now sat in his company, under his leadership. Claire struggled at first. She couldn't shake the feeling of being exposed, of being reminded of her past. She wondered if Daniel remembered, if he judged her, if he saw her as the same girl who had laughed at him. But Daniel never mentioned it. He treated her fairly, gave her opportunities, and expected her to perform like everyone else. And she did. She worked hard, determined to prove herself, not just to him, but to herself. The tension between them was subtle, unspoken. Claire admired him now, not for his looks or popularity, but for his drive, his intelligence, his success. She saw the man he had become, and she couldn't help but feel regret. Regret for the way she had dismissed him. Regret for the way she had laughed. Regret for not seeing the potential that had always been there. She realized that the boy she had rejected had turned into the man she now respected, perhaps even admired, in ways she couldn't admit. Daniel, on the other hand, had long moved past the pain. He had built his empire not to prove her wrong, but to prove himself right. Yet, seeing her there, working in his company, was a reminder of how far he had come. It was poetic, almost cinematic, the way life had brought them back together. He didn't need her validation anymore. He had already won. But he couldn't deny the satisfaction of knowing that the tables had turned. As months passed, Claire grew into her role. She contributed ideas, led projects, and earned recognition. Daniel noticed her growth, her effort, her determination. He respected her professionalism, even if the past lingered in the shadows. Slowly, the dynamic shifted. They began to interact more, to collaborate, to share conversations beyond work. Claire found herself drawn to him, not out of nostalgia, but out of genuine admiration. She saw the man he had become, and she couldn't help but wonder what might have been if she had said yes all those years ago. But Daniel wasn't the same boy anymore. He wasn't waiting for her approval. He wasn't chasing her attention. He was focused on his company, his vision, his future. Claire's presence was a reminder of the past, but not a distraction from the present. He had learned that success wasn't about proving others wrong. It was about proving yourself right, about building something lasting, about turning scars into strength. And yet, the story doesn't end with revenge or regret. It ends with growth. Claire learned humility, the importance of seeing beyond appearances, the danger of dismissing someone based on shallow judgments. Daniel learned forgiveness, the power of moving forward, the strength of letting go. Their paths had crossed in high school, diverged, and then converged again in the most unexpected way. Life had a way of writing stories no one could predict. So when you think about rejection, remember this. Sometimes, the very moments that hurt us the most become the fuel that drives us to greatness. Sometimes, the laughter of others becomes the echo that pushes us forward. And sometimes, the people who once dismissed us end up sitting in the audience of our success. Daniel's story is proof that rejection is not the end. It is the beginning. And Claire's story is proof that we must never underestimate anyone, because the quiet kid in the back of the class might just be the one who owns the company you work for someday. And as Daniel stood in his office, overlooking the city skyline, he knew one thing for certain. He didn't need revenge. He didn't need validation. He had already won. Not because she worked for him, but because he had built himself into the man he always knew he could be. And that, in the end, was the greatest victory of all.